Hello, Namaskar, good evening. Welcome to NCRT's live interactive session. You are all watching us on PM eVidya channel number 6 to 12. Or viewers, you can also connect with us to our YouTube channel that you all know it's NCRT official. So it's around 4 p.m. on your watch, and regularly from 4 to 5 p.m. we come up with our special sessions. And for the next 5 days, it's our special online training on digital tools for teaching, learning and assessment of specific subjects. So we are conducting these sessions to enhance the teaching learning processes, as we all know that different subjects require dedicated tools for exploration and knowledge construction. And just providing you a glimpse of what are the areas that we are going to cover in these 5 days. So as it's 23rd May 2022, today we are going to discuss about digital tools for specific subjects, concept, need and significance. On day 2, that is tomorrow, we'll discuss regarding digital tools for teaching and learning of mathematics. I would like to inform all our viewers that in our 5 days online training, we'll be covering different subjects like mathematics, science, English, social sciences and the specific tools that are concerned with them. So on day 3, that is on 25th of May, we'll have a word regarding digital tools for teaching and learning for science. On the 4th day, 26th May, we'll discuss regarding digital tools for teaching and learning of English. And on our concluding day, that is on 27th of May 2022, our topic will remain digital tools for teaching and learning of social sciences. Now, as you all know that after we conclude our 5 days online trainings or whatever days we have made up our online trainings for, towards the concluding day, for this particular session, it's 27th of May. So we'll have a quiz. A quiz link will be uploaded on CIET website. We'll also provide you a demonstration how you can land up to our page, how you can access the links and how you can register yourself. And the quiz will be available on 27th of May till 6 p.m. and till 19th June 2022, you all can be a part of our quiz. And we'll get to know more about sessions, but let's continue for the day. As I just mentioned that for today, the topic that we are going to discuss is digital tools for specific subjects, concept, need and significance. And in the conversation, as always, we are also joined by 2 experts. So let me introduce them to all our viewers. In the conversation, we have with us Mr. Guru Murthy Kashinathan. Namaskar, sir. Good evening. A very warm welcome in the session. I'm delighted to inform our viewers that sir is director at IT for Change, has joined in from Bangalore. A very warm welcome. In the conversation,
welcome to all.
A very warm welcome in the session, sir. Honor to have you with us. We are also joined by Dr. Achita Deshmukh. Namaskar, ma'am. Good evening.
Namaskar. Good evening.
A very warm welcome in the session as well. Ma'am is assistant professor currently serving at School of Education and Research, MIT ATD University, has joined in from Pune. So viewers, throughout our live interactive session, if you have any of the queries, write to us in the comment section of NCRT official. Besides, here is our contact number that is flashing on your screens. So you may also give us a call at 8800-440-559. And you all know we try to take all your queries in our sessions itself, but in case if any of your answers or any of your queries are left unanswered, you can also write to us at our help desk mail ID flashing on your screens. It is training.helpdesk@ciet.nic.in. So once again, for this particular day, under our broader theme, that is digital tools for teaching, learning and assessment of specific subjects, we are going to cover the area that is digital tools for specific subjects, concept, need and significance. So in the beginning, in the first place, I would request one of the experts, Dr. Achita Deshmukh, to please share your views regarding the topic with all our viewers.
Yeah, thank you, Simran, and it's great to be on the same platform with Mr. Guru. We have been working for some of the other things earlier on. And to say a very warm welcome, I'm in Pune where the temperature is like 43, 45, and I would really not want any more warmth, as to say. So let's hope that things get cool soon. As cool as ICT tools are when they are used. But there's something about the subject specificity and why do we need them, or rather what is the concept of subject specific tools that I'm going to just take a walk through. Most of the times this is what has happened over the last 2 years, that almost like every single day more than 100 tools are coming up some applications or the other, and the teachers are having a gala time, probably thinking that, wow, so many tools, and the most biggest misconception of all, I can use anything and I will use everything. So, in a bid to, try and to, there's something called as like to appear to be tech savvy, and you are really tech savvy, and then you actually know when to use ICT tools. There are some times that you actually don't need to use them, and this comes from a person who is actually ICT integration specialist. But there are times that we do think that was it really needed? So yes, we need to really think that what are we using, why are we using, when are we using? Because as someone has rightly said, a fool with a tool is still a fool. So if you, unless and until you really know how to use the tool, when to use the tool, and for what purpose are you actually using it, unless and until you're very clear about that, it's still just going to be very superficial, on the fringe, nothing like the real purpose of using it. So let's go ahead with the need for subject specific tools. And every educator or even anybody who is trying to be like a pre-service teacher or maybe out of the formal system but still is an educator of sorts. First, for those who are using ICT tools, please let's have certain things. What is it that makes it so very special? The first thing is to recognize what competencies are needed to be mastered by our students at that particular level. So first and foremost, the educators should try to figure out the competency skills required for the students to acquire, then the curriculum needs and the curriculum details. So otherwise, it is just going to be, all over, spread all over without actually a real focus. And then the most important thing, the context. Right now, if you would have noticed, Guru Sir said in his regional language he wished to you all, and I said that it's very warm and I don't want the warmth here. So this is the context that we are actually setting up, that we are coming up from different places. So this is just a very small example of how we set the context. But when we talk in educational part, we have to understand that our students are going to come from varied backgrounds. They are going to have a variety of level of mastery. And what is the context that we are actually teaching them in, and within what is the curriculum situated? So unless and until we know about that, we should not try to experiment just using random ICT tools. Because understanding the context will also give us a familiarity about the constraints that are there. So it's very nice for both of us, both the experts as well as the CIET there, to sit in the mega metropolitan city and give ICT. But if you are placed at a particular place where maybe the internet connectivity is not there, maybe the tools are not there, then how can you use the subject specific tools for asynchronous purposes and not have any barriers in your education transaction? So that is another purpose, another goal that we should keep in mind when we are going for the subject specific tools. Like we talked about goals, so let's talk about the purposes. Broadly speaking, we have three purposes where we can use ICT tools. One is the developmental stage or the developmental purpose. We are going to talk about them a little bit more. I can also say that developmental competencies and developmental skills are the skills that we talk about, the cognitive skills, we talk about the analysis, and so many other things. But those are the developmental skills. While the instructional skills are about more focused about what is the purpose of this particular chapter, this particular topic, how do I teach this, what is my strategy, what is my teaching strategy, what is my assessment strategy. So all these are the purposes of the ICT tools usage that we have. And others, of course, it will range from anything and everything, even admin purpose. Onboarding or onboarding students, enrollment of students, keeping their grading sheets, keeping their marks sheets. So all these purposes also we do require ICT. So if we can broadly classify the purpose of the usage of ICT, and then we go on narrowing down further for the subject specificity, I think the educators will have a very clear idea as to what to use when. Just going ahead, like I said, that we're to talk about the developmental aspect. So we have this six developmental aspects that we can see major for which ICT can be used. I purposely did not keep the transition in this particular slide because if anybody is watching in this particular show at any time and if you just want to have a screenshot or just a photograph using your phone, just to know this, you should be able to do that. And therefore, so suppose if I want my students to have not content-based expression, maybe a different way of visualization, then I will use an ICT tool that promotes the creativity of the student. While if I am dealing with, let us say, if my students are not so competent with, let's say, a foreign language, and it's a foreign language class, then I will be using the tools that will enable me to have something like, the Grammarly that we always have, or the predictive text that comes with, where it is just a basic skill that talks about the basic literacy, the numeracy. If I want my students to have real life application, or maybe I want to have a projection of what I do in the lab, then I might use simulation tool, I might use AR, VR. If it is factual, it goes in a different direction. If it is conceptual, it goes in a different direction. And hence, an educator who is going to use such a specific tool better set initially with the curriculum and draft the goals. That what are the goals of this lesson and what skill do I want my students to achieve through this. Only then, once this is decided, like if it's a history lesson, I need not always show them a video. That's most of the time the theme. I can always give them documents. I can give them archival documents. I can ask them, I can give them some newspaper clippings as archives, and I can ask them that now have some analysis of that and how is it going to be used in today's world. That would help more rather than just showing a video. So let's please understand that there are multiple ways in which the same thing, the same topic, the same subject can be taught, only if the goals, the purposes are very, very clear. So we were talking about goals, and so the instructional purpose actually would be defined by the goal. Now the goal could be just to recollect or remember, but it could also be something, mastery learning, where a student actually keeps on practicing a particular thing till the mastery is gained. Most of the times we see this in skills, mathematical skills, or let us say practical skills in physics, chemistry, biology. So these are the goals that we need to decide that, okay, through my usage of ICT, through the usage of my students using ICT tools, I am desirous of achieving this particular goal for my students, of my student learning. Accordingly, if I am going to have activities, like we said, we have certain constraints. So, keeping in mind the context and the constraints both, if I am going to design my activity, then what type of ICT tool will I use so that my constraints don't really become a hurdle? Do I get the feedback from the students are most important? Because unless and until I get the feedback from my students, I'm not going to know how to improve my teaching strategy. It's not about grading the students. It's more about, have the students understood it? Do I need to add something more? Do I need to go one step further? Do I need to have some remedial part somewhere? So the feedback cycle, does my ICT tool have enough of feedback cycle there? And am I going to use the learning analysis as well? So how am I going to evaluate? How am I going to have a formative test? Or am I going to ask them to create a small video, audio thing and send them, like a podcast? That can be done. If they can't create a video, maybe they don't have a high bandwidth device, but something that can be done with a low bandwidth device. Can I give them an alternative? Can I make my assessments and evaluations very comprehensive, not just grading, auto grading and tam khatam, not like that. So what are my goals? what are my instructional rules and purposes. And of course, like we said, the others are all, everything, general administration, everyday new applications coming up. And of course, we have lots of resources on the web. We have lots of other resources in the library, in the e-library, in other places where, maybe we have those old CDs still with us. Even they are ICT resources and can be still used. I still remember, I still have a game of Spider-Man that teaches actually math. And I still have that CD. So anytime if there is a kid around who needs to have that mastery learning for addition subtraction, I always offer that. Okay, I'm giving you my CD, but I want it back in a month. Okay, so such resources are there which can be shared, but there are other type of resources that you can use. The most important thing here is to match the tools to what we want to achieve. Like if I just want that my students should have a conceptual knowledge, then maybe an activity is better. If I want them to have a procedural knowledge, then I would prefer to give them a simulation where they will actually understand the procedure. And as you can see here, if it's just a factual knowledge, it could be an infographic or a poster, which I may create, which I may ask my students to create. For both, I am going to need an ICT. So it depends on really what is my approach, what is my teaching strategy, what is the type of content that I'm going to do or I'm dealing with, and most importantly, my goal of teaching. And so without taking much more of time, this is how we usually call it. This is the key fact. It's one of the models that can be kept as a reference when we are using subject-specific tools, because it allows us as educators to think about not just key things in isolation, but the center, the core. That is where we think the technology, that is the technological knowledge that I have and my students have. The pedagogical knowledge that I have and which I want it to be seen in the transaction, and the content knowledge that maybe I have, maybe I am deriving from the resources from the web or any other resources, but I want my students to achieve certain level in that particular point. So if I assume all these three and if I consider every particular aspect, then I see the golden center. That center, if you achieve, that is where we say that this is the technological, pedagogical content knowledge. So that is the DPAC model that most of us do follow. Yeah, it is a bit complex as such, but yes, integrating ICT is not something that you can get up one fine day and start using it. Then that is an emergency remote teaching and not actually ICT integrated pedagogy. I think Guru sir has got lots of more information about this, and he is going to talk more about the power of the tools. And Guru sir, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ajita, for a wonderful presentation. Can I request CIT to put the single image that I've got, on which I'm going to talk today? Dr. Ajita spoke in very great depth about the conceptual significance of integrating subject-based tools in teaching learning. I am going to complement what she said and try to talk from the sphere of practice. I work in an NGO, IT for Change, and we have been working with teachers for the last 10, 12 years across different states, actually conducting workshops and courses for them to use different subject-based tools. Can I request Simranji to put the slide on?
Of course, sir. We are using that on our screens.
Yeah, okay, fine. So that's great. So I'm going to talk more from the viewpoint of practice, and hopefully I will wind up in the next 10-15 minutes so that we have some time for discussions. So the idea of subject-based tools itself is a very important idea, and I will give the analogy of the clothes that we wear. So there are some kind of dresses that all of us can wear, and it might be a trouser, or it may be a kind of a lungi or a sarong, and this almost everybody can wear these. But In addition to these, we have some specific uniforms, like a doctor has a specific set of clothes that they wear, or somebody who fights in the army, they have to have their uniform, which has several specific aspects, very custom made to meet the requirements of their job. In the same way, if you look at digital technology, when it began, of course, initially the business world was the primary customer of technology, and that's how we started the world of applications with the Office suite, with the word processing or presentations. And this was enthusiastically embraced by many teachers across the whole world. And so creating a presentation was a very important aspect of integration of ICT into teaching. But I would say that the real fun in integrating technology really began when subject-based tools started becoming more available. And I still remember the first time I encountered a subject-based tool. This was my friend Dr. Nagarjuna, who is now retired from the Omiba Science Center, who presented the sugar labs, and this was, I think, more than 14 years back. And he showed a simple pendulum experiment. So, of course, you can put a pendulum on the wall and you can actually swing it and you can understand and learn about it. But this digital version of the pendulum enabled us to actually do various variations on the variables that affected the swing of the pendulum, whether it's the length of the pendulum, the material the pendulum was made of, the weight of the item on which the pendulum was hanging, even the humidity, temperature, gravity. You could play with many aspects to see what would impact the pendulum swing. And that was really eye-opening for me. And although Sugar Labs is not so popular now, not really available, but many of you who teach physics may have heard of the FED simulation, which is available online on the fed.colorado.edu website. And you can even download it and create offline versions of it on your own computer so that you can use it when you're not online. So Sugar Labs and the pendulum experiment was my first entry into the world of subject-based tools. And I realized that because every subject has its own purpose, has its own ways of, creating abilities in the learner to think about the world around us, I realized that every subject can have its own set of software applications which are geared specifically for the aims of that particular subject. And the next exposure that I had to subject-based tools was, of course, GeoGebra. And one of the teachers with whom we worked, she is a National ICT Award winner, Dr. Radha Narve, and she very simply said that GeoGebra is a boon for maths teachers. And I think nobody can say it better than that. And I think every maths teacher in the world should know how to use GeoGebra. Like Dr. Ajita rightly pointed out, you may not necessarily use GeoGebra every time you need to teach maths. You will decide when to use it, you will decide when not to use it. But you should be able to know that there is a tool called GeoGebra, that you can do constructions, you can vary the, the properties of different objects that you're constructing. And not only you can use it to teach your students, you can also have students play with it as well. So in maths, for example, the National Curricular Framework Position Paper 2005 says that the purpose of mathematics teaching is not really memorizing algorithms, but it is to develop what it calls as mathematization of thinking. The children should be able to think mathematically. And I found in my own explorations of GeoGebra as a software that it helped me to visualize theorems, it helped me to understand the properties of different constructions, and I was able to do it in my own explorations of the tool. So I would say that GeoGebra can open a world of its own as far as maths teaching is concerned. And of course, CIT and CRT has run several workshops for mathematics teachers on GeoGebra. And I hope that very soon, every single teacher who teaches maths in India should be aware of it. And of course, she will use it when she wants to. Along with GeoGebra, which is, as the name suggests, GeoGebra is a combination of geometry and algebra. So it was specifically made for construction, specifically made for understanding different, items in algebra and arithmetic as well, statistics, probability, and different kinds of topics you can use in GeoGebra. In the same way, many times teachers have been frustrated at teaching constructions to children, because if you have a large class of 40, 50 children, it's very difficult to help every child understand the specific steps of a construction. And a tool like RoboCompass is a tool that one can use to demonstrate constructions very easily to children. You can project it on the big screen and therefore children can easily follow. So GeoGebra and RoboCompass are two specific applications which are relevant primarily for mathematics teaching. And I'm happy to say that almost every subject will have tools of that kind. So for example, any teacher who teaches geography, who so far used physical atlases which are in a book or in a print form, can enjoy the power of digital expression of a map to expand, to reduce the dimensions of the map, to alter it in different ways. It could be orientation, and I already said size. You can play with maps on a tool like Marble, and that can help you to visualize different concepts. For example, one of the ways I've used Marble for teaching is to ask students. We all learn in our school geography that the west coast of India, there is a huge, it gets very heavy rains, and at the same time, large parts of the Maharashtra, the Deccan Plateau, do not get rain at all. And using Marble, one can easily see the enormous contrast in the actual rainfall in these two regions. And then you can use that map to actually explore why is it that the rainfall is not there, what is the impact, what is the implication of differential rainfall in terms of agriculture, in terms of shape and structure of housing. You can actually get into discussions of that. Of course, you can do all this even without Marble, but Marble sort of helps you think along those lines. And in the same way, there are tools for, I would say, social, even other areas of subjects, other subjects like, for example, language. One of the biggest challenges we have in language teaching is we are told listening and speaking is the starting point of language learning, and all that we are able to give to teachers is textbooks. And that's a kind of a contradiction, because textbooks are better for reading and writing. They're useful for reading as a resource. Of course, the teacher can read out the textbook and then it becomes an audio resource. But there are tools for making audio materials itself. And the tool like Audacity is, I think, a tool that every language teacher should know, just like GeoGebra is a tool that every math teacher should know. So as I explained to you, you can use these digital tools for different purposes. One is, of course, to make materials. You can make lessons, you can make resources for students to see. And students can also play with it and make materials by themselves. You can use it in the process of teaching learning, and equally importantly, you can use it for assessments also. So I have seen teachers who have used GeoGebra not only to teach with GeoGebra, but also use GeoGebra as an assessment. When students are working with GeoGebra and you're watching them create objects using GeoGebra, you will actually get a sense of what they are thinking. Now, if you ask them to do something and they come back with you with the end product, which is a construction, for example, it's very difficult for you to easily figure out where they made a mistake and why they made a mistake. But sometimes when you're actually seeing them do a construction, it can give you insight into the student's mind. So in terms of assessments, different software tools are useful. And IT for Change, for example, one of the things that we use digital tools from an assessment point of view is, in all our courses that we have for in-service teachers and for pre-service teachers, our assessment is never a written exam. Our assessment is always a portfolio that the teacher or the student teacher submits. And the portfolio is a portfolio of the various creations that the teacher has created. And along with the creation, of course, we'll always ask the teacher to give her ideas on how that particular creation can be used, whether for teaching or for assessment. And that whole process of submitting a portfolio, not just one resource, but it has a concept map, it has an audio file, or it can have a interactive web resource. A combination of all these gives us an idea to what extent the teacher has imbibed the idea of TPCK or TPAT, which Dr. Ajita pointed out. The teacher's own sense of TPCK, technological, pedagogical, content knowledge, which is how well the teacher is able to integrate technology with her pedagogy and with her content, and how is she able to use all these three together to deliver a lesson which is effective in her context. That is something that you're able to understand from the portfolio submitted by the teachers. I will talk about two more things before I stop. One is, I think, the power of subject-based tools is that it can really make a huge difference to the way the teacher thinks about the subject. Now, we all...
Yeah, Gurumurthy sir, could you hear me?
You want me to wind up?
No, sir. You may continue.
Yeah.
Just lost your audio.
Connection was... Sorry. I hope the connection is okay now.
Yes, sir. You may continue.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I was saying that even in teacher education, to a large extent, we have the similar kinds of text material as we have for schools, as we have in schools. So many times teachers who are teaching are also constrained in the way they look at their own subjects and the teaching of those subjects, and exposing the teachers to these kind of digital tools actually helps them to relook and reimagine subject teaching itself. And this is something we have seen happening in our own work with teachers. I'm not saying every teacher's imagination has changed. I'm not saying that technology will always change a teacher's way of thinking, but many a times if you're able to introduce these technologies, these different subject tools to teachers and work with them on looking at the subject teaching in a different way, it can be mind-opening for them, and that's a very powerful way of using technology. One important impact of subject-based tools is that historically we are used to looking at technology as what can I do with the technology that I have? And in fact, Dr. Ajita's, I think, first slide also talked about something to that effect. We are, one way of looking at technology is what is available, what can I do with it? But I think an important shift from that thinking is what do I want to do and how can I find technology for it? I think that is much, much more powerful. So if the teacher can start thinking that I am teaching this subject, I have this particular requirement, I find it difficult to teach this particular concept using the traditional methods, traditional pedagogies that I have. Can I find a software tool? Can I find a function of a particular software that I'm already using, which will help me do that? So the shift in thinking from what can I do with what I have to what is it that I want to do what I want to do, I think is an important shift in teachers' imagination with the introduction of subject-based tools. I need software which can do my job. I think that is what is the essence of what I'm trying to say. The last point I want to make is there is software and there is software and there is software. Now, I would say a very important parameter of the software to select is the software Swatantra software or not Swatantra software? Now, we know that India became Swatantra in 1947, right? We wouldn't want India to become a slave of another country. We want to be able to take decisions about our future by ourselves. We don't want to be listening to somebody else. Same logic applies to software also. There are two kinds of software. One software is what, as I said, Swatantra software. You can install it on your computer. You can use it without anybody's permission. You can upgrade to the latest version. You can share it with others. So the Swatantra software is also called free and open source software in English, which gives you 4 freedoms. The freedom to study the software, the freedom to modify the software, the freedom to share the software, and share it after making modifications. These freedoms are not available with other kinds of software which are called proprietary software. Now in today's world, we find that whatever software we use is free of cost, but it is not free and open source. And there is a huge problem in using such software because, like again, my friend Nagarjuna once told me, using a proprietary software is, keeping all your, let's say you're using a software like Canva, which is a proprietary software popular with many teachers. Canva is a wonderful tool for creating presentations, for creating resources. Now, the interesting thing is when you create a resource in Canva, you cannot download it to your computer. You cannot share it in editable form with anybody else. You can only edit on the Canva platform, and you can download non-editable PDFs. And this is a restriction on the teacher's right. So Nagarjuna once said, it's like you have your own treasure, but you have kept it in a room, and the key to that room is with somebody else. Now that seems a particularly unwise thing to do because at any point in time, the person who has the key can simply tell you, I have lost the key, I don't have the key, I don't want to give it to you. So Canva can simply decide one fine day that they will knock your login out. And nothing you have no right to tell Canva that the material belongs to you. So the same thing is true with all of Google's products, for example. You will provide translations to Google, you will mark the maps of Google, you will do the things that will benefit Google. But in return, you get nothing else. You are allowed to use that platform at their whim and fancy. So I think as far as education is concerned, it's extremely important that we all adopt Swatantra software, that we are all Swatantra teachers, and we are not the gulam of any company, whether or not it gives us the product free of cost or it charges us. And I want to end by pointing out that what I'm saying is not something revolutionary. I would say, for example, Kerala, which is the #1 state in India in using technologies, they only use free and open source software in their own classes and their school system. And the same thing should be true for the rest of the country as well. The 2012 policy of ICT in school education, which CIT released, very clearly says that in education, free and open source should be used. And I would like to end my talk on that note. There are enough free and open source software for teaching different subjects, and therefore let us stick to that part of the world. That is the world that belongs to us. Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir and ma'am, for this conceptual understanding of the subject-specific digital tools that we are talking about. And in this conversation, I would like to inform everyone that we are joined by over 7,600 viewers through our YouTube channel, that is NCRE Official. Here we are discussing about digital tools for specific subjects, concept, need and their significance. So all the viewers, your valuable feedback is immensely important to us, and you can write to us in the comment section of NCRE Official. We still have around 20 minutes left in the conversation. If you have any of the queries regarding today's subject, regarding the digital tools, how to use them, why are they important in our lives, write to us in the comment section of NCRE Official, and we'll try to come up with the queries. So we have two experts in our session today, and we have a set of questions for both of you. So obviously we are not letting you go now. So if you allow me, could I proceed with the questions?
Oh yes. Can I just share something before you ask the question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, this is just because when Guru sir was talking about the teachers should first decide what they want and then they should go and search for the tool. So this is actually my personal experience that I would like to share. I come from a chemistry background. I entered teacher education at ICT just 10 years ago, and why it happened is actually because of this. So what used to happen was, I found that my students don't particularly like chemistry. So I used to wonder that why a subject which I love so much, how can they not even like? So I started asking them, and they told me that it's too abstract for them. And one of the guys was like, जो दिखता भी नहीं है, उसका आप proof कैसे दे? Like you can't even see the atoms. And how are you saying that the electrons would be like this, and they would be spinning like? And that actually set me thinking. This was around, let's say like 10, 12 years ago, I think 2012 or something. I started exploring, because at that point of time, if I would have showed my students what we used to learn, the stick and ball model, it was really outdated for them. They just could not, it was just not for them. It's not for their generation. So that actually made me explore that, no, I want to show them how the structures are made, how and why carbon cannot form the fourth bond, though it can form single bond, double bond and triple bond. And that's how I came across Avogadro. It was its first version, and only IIT Bombay was using Avogadro, and I had contacted Professor Kanan Maurkalya, who was actually working at that time, and I started my entry into ICT integrated pedagogy started from there. It was not with using any random tool and showing a video or showing a simulation. I wanted the students to actually work on it and create the molecules for themselves and learn. So if the teachers try to do that, I think we have now, this is 64th, I think, upgradation of Avogadro's version, I think, and maybe the number is more also. But that's how actually the teacher should try to figure out, as he rightly has said. First, understand what you want. You will get the software.
Of course. Thank you for sharing your experience. So, taking cues from your experience itself, you have got the idea and you have brought a life to that idea in your journey. Congratulations to you. So, sir, do you like to share anything, or we'll proceed with the questions then?
We can proceed with the questions.
Of course, sir. As we are discussing about the different digital tools that are available with us for subject specificity. Now, whenever we talk about digital tools, it seems to be a broader term. Instead to a layman or maybe a general teacher, it seems to be a broader term, but why we are emphasizing so much on the subject specific tools? Why is it the requirement of every teacher, be it science teacher or an English teacher, to learn certain digital tools in order to impart education to their students?
Would you like to go in? Should I start? Should I respond?
Yeah, sure. Sure, sir.
So, as I said, when I began, I said there are some clothes that almost everybody can wear. So, trouser is now, everybody wears trousers. But there are some specific uniforms we have for specific purposes. So, and I gave the example of the army uniform or a doctor's robe. So, in the same way, we know that as far as education is concerned, each subject has its own very specific purpose. So there are some broad goals of education that are common across subjects. That is always there. And maybe you want the student to think on their own. You want them to be able to communicate with another in a particular language. And those are kind of generic goals that all subjects may have. But as I said, I spoke about the mathematization of thinking. Now, that's a special responsibility that is given to the maths teacher. It's not that the science or the social science teacher is against that concept, but mathematics has specific scope for enabling students to look at patterns, to imagine patterns, to understand patterns, to look at numbers and to do operations with numbers, logical thinking. So these are all very much within the domain of mathematics. So, and that is very different from, let's say, a subject like sociology. In sociology also there is thinking, but the complexities of thinking in sociology are very different from that of mathematics. Now, software is a human creation and for a particular purpose, and which is basically to create some resources or some methods by which we can communicate in a better way with people around us. So therefore, if in mathematics the objective is mathematization of thinking, the software that will do that job is not going to be the same that is going to help the sociology teacher in critical thinking. And the work of IT for Change so far has been largely with high schools, and in high schools the subject differentiation is very well known, and in that sense subject-based tools, once teachers start using them, and I just want to very quickly give this example. Whenever we do a workshop in GeoGebra, we usually on the second or third day we'll introduce GeoGebra. We'll have some broader explanations in the first day or two, and I will always announce that from today we don't have a lunch break, because what we find when we start teaching GeoGebra on the morning of third day, teachers don't want to leave the lab, whether it is for coffee, tea, or for even lunch, because they find that this is something exactly what I wanted to look for, So something like a mate for each other. So therefore, subject-based tools are extremely powerful, and each teacher will find the software that's made for her.
And of course, I think they make our classrooms more interesting. Okay, moving ahead in the conversation. So we have, today we are bombarded with information. We have information from all corners of the world. And now we have so many softwares, applications that are available for free of cost, either on our Androids or on our systems. So are there any dangers or limitations that are attached to them?
Yeah, thank you. When I concluded my talk, I spoke about the need to use free and open source software, and I give the example that if you're using proprietary software, it is like you're keeping your treasures in a room, but the key is with somebody else. So you're creating resources using a tool like Canva, but Canva can any day tell you that your license is not available anymore, and they can knock your account out. I mean, all these are a part of the general arrangements that these companies have. But there's one big danger which I didn't talk about when I spoke earlier, which is that proprietary tools can capture user data. They can capture the data of teachers, they can capture the data of students, and that data can be harvested in ways that can be very harmful to us. And at least on this ground, that unethically, unauthorizedly, companies can collect data from you. For example, just today I had this experience that I got repeated calls from a university asking me to join their course because I had gone to a website and I had registered myself on that site. And they could collect my phone number, my mail address, and they were able to bombard me with information about the courses which I was not actually interested in. So whenever you're using an app, and that app is not free and open source, if it's free and open source, we know what the code is, we can find out whether there is any unauthorized collection of data. In the case of proprietary software, we have absolutely no idea what they are doing with the data that they're collecting, and that can be hugely dangerous for not only teachers, but it's even more dangerous for students because they are not even adults. And I would say that NCERT should simply say that proprietary software is a no-no for use in education, and then you find that the choice reduces. And then of course there is a pedagogical evaluation. Is a tool doing what I wanted to do, and then I will use it. Yeah. Sorry for a long answer.
No issues, sir. We still have around 10 minutes left in the conversation. Viewers, whatever you feel like asking regarding our today's subject, write to us in the comment section, and I'll take your questions, and I'm sure that our experts would be more than happy to answer all your questions. So, very appropriately, sir, you have put that answer into words. Specifically, when we talk about digital tools, this is a question from one of our viewer, and I would request ma'am to please answer it. Ma'am, how can digital tools benefit student learning? Like, what benefit they could add in the education of students, apart from the conventional form of teaching that we have been following?
Okay, as far as the most simplest way to put it is, it gives the learner the autonomy of learning. Because it gives me, suppose if I am the learner and you are giving me a particular content which I can learn via ICT tools, I can first and foremost adjust my pace. The content becomes more accessible. And this is like, in my opinion, the basis of personalization. That is, I don't have to compete with, let us say, the others who are sitting here. Maybe this is a classroom and Simran is the teacher and who's like giving out content to us. And then I don't have to actually struggle. At that moment, I can face my own learning. That is the autonomy that I get. I mean, this is the base from where we can start of thinking about the benefit. Other than that, of course, if since there is learner autonomy, if I want to repeat something, maybe it's not possible in a class of 30, 40, and I come from a state where I should not say that we boast of, but our class strength is in effect 100. So, yeah, and in higher secondary, the class strength is 120 also for grade 11 and 12. So it's probably impossible if I were to stop the teacher and ask. And it's humanly impossible. Just imagine, even if half of the class is present, 50 students asking doubts at different stages, your class is never going to get over. But you have this, I can repeat, I can gain mastery at my own pace. That is what I feel is the biggest positive of using ICT tools. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, of course, that answers it very well. Thank you. Moving ahead in the conversation, so we would like to know this from you. Why there are so many digital tools that are available in some subjects like maths and science, unlike sociology or psychology?
Yeah, the essence of, when we say digital, and we know that the basis of the digital is computer programming. And computer programming works in particular ways. You give a series of instructions, very clear, precise instructions to the computer, and the computer then executes those instructions. It may then, show you some diagram on your screen, or it may play an audio. But at the end of the day, every digital application has as its base a series of very clear, specific instructions. Some subjects thrive on such precision. Mathematics is one of them. Of course, mathematics is not only about precision. We also know mathematics is about approximations as well. But a lot of maths is to do with very precise ways of calculating, etc. And therefore, a subject like mathematics can have a software like GeoGebra, which is so almost perfectly attuned to that subject teaching. But let's say social sciences. Social sciences are all about people, complexities of relationships, interactions, etc. The digital is a poor way to actually capture that complexity. So to that extent, a subject like sociology or politics will not easily have software tools that can support teaching learning processes like the way you have a FET virtual lab in science or a GeoGebra in maths. But of course, now we are talking about virtual reality, augmented reality, and those could give possibilities for bringing the complexity of interactions into the digital world as well. But maybe a good teacher can produce much better interactions in the classroom using non-digital means. And in that sense, yes, there will be some subjects that will have more applications than others. But even for the social science teachers and language teachers, I would say that the audio resource, video resource, and again, one important point I want to make here is when we look at software, I already said teachers can not only teach with the software, but they can use to create. And I think very important part for teachers is don't look at yourselves as users of technology. You're not a user, you're not a consumer, you're not a customer, you are a creator. So the minute you say that I'm a creator in the technology space, then you're looking at creating experiences using digital tools. And for language learning as well as for social sciences, audio video resources, whether it's Audacity for audio material making, or a Voco screen for screencasting, or a Caden Live for video editing, you find that these tools can really be used for capturing a skit enacted by students and then discussing it as reflective activity. So audio video resource making tools are certainly useful for language and social sciences, but nothing like GeoGebra for maths, I would say. That's my biased view, but I may be wrong. Or an Avogadro for teaching chemistry, because H2O is water. Water cannot be anything. You cannot put in carbon and make water. So that kind of precision that is there in the pure sciences is not there in the social sciences. But that's okay. There are other tools that are available.
Can I add something? Okay. He rightly said that there are lots of complexities when it comes to social sciences and other things. And like he only said in the earlier part that the teacher should actually try to search what you want. And I came across, I would not give out the name because then people will not search. So there is a game on political science. Uh, there is one Indian version of it also, uh, where you actually form the government, you have the cards, and you pick up the cards, and every card has got a problem. And, you know, it's something simple, as simple as you can cut so many trees to form a particular, let's say, an infrastructural thing. Then what will you do if you are in the leadership position? It's a very wonderful game that I came across. It is in, I mean, the digital version is in not in Indian context, but there are people who have turned it into Indian context also. The game is based from Europe and America, but people can search, and it's also available on Facebook. I mean, they're very excited.
Yeah. Thank you so much for answering that in the conversation we are left by the last 2 minutes. So, sir, very quickly, I would request you to highlight on this, as you mentioned about Audacity and you mentioned about Canva. Now Audacity is an audio editing software and Canva deals with photography or photo editors. So, isn't it quite challenging for teachers to take up this task of imparting education to their students with the help of digital technology, digital students? Because nowadays, even then also, whenever we are not quite familiar with something or a task or a tool, we feel quite reluctant or hesitant to perform that. So how could teachers, just the beginners, start with these digital tools?
Actually, I always say, a teacher is not, what do you mean by a teacher? If you see a primary school teacher, you will find 90% of them sing and dance with their children, right? They are singers, they are dancers, they compose their own songs, they add music in their own local ways when they're actually singing and dancing. So every teacher is a performer, every teacher is a thinker and a communicator and a music director. So all these things a good teacher is. So therefore, these technology tools are simply ways of enhancing their own abilities of doing these various aspects. So I would say if a language teacher wants to really bring more music into her teaching, Audacity, she will just love Audacity and she'll start using it. So anything we find useful for us, learning to use it is not difficult at all. So that is what I would like to say.
Thank you. And the best takeaway from the session for me was that a teacher is a creator. So of course a creator has got no boundaries. You all can learn these digital tools, and for the next 5 days stay connected to NCERT, so that in these sessions of our 5 days online training you'll receive all the information about subject specific digital tools. Once again, I would like to thank both our experts for being with us in the conversation and explaining in depth about the digital tools for specific subjects, their needs and significance. Thanks a lot. Mr. Gurumurthy Kashinathan sir, thank you.
Nandri to all. I said Vanakkam in the beginning, I'll end with Nandri. Just thank you.
Thank you sir, and thank you so much Ajita ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the viewers who have been actively engaging in our session. As I just informed that over 7,000 viewers have joined with us in this particular conversation through our YouTube channel. So write to us in the comment section about all your views, about your feedback, about your queries. Surely we'll come up with our answers. Now it's time to say goodbye to this particular session, but stay connected to NCERT. We have lots more for you. Our upcoming session is Sahyog. Namaskar.